Brian. I want to just say to you something. I want to say just thank you for being such a scout and being like so committed to your truth and your message that you brought this to us because I have so much to say about this tonight. And I do feel like this is life-changing stuff, right? This is people talk about healing, and I often ask when people talk about healing, but what does that mean? How? How do you, they say go inward, and I get that, but what do you do? How do you go about that? And I feel like this really does dive deep into the self, and you start from the bottom, like you were explaining in your video there, that the identity, you start there. And in that, I feel like already I have gotten so many answers.
Good. I'm glad. I look forward to hearing about it tonight.
Absolutely.
Tell us a bit about yourself. I think your nickname is quite unique as well. So this is your moment for a selfless advertisement on your behalf.
Shameless advertising
Yes.
on your channel. Thank you. Yeah, so name is John, right? Basically got involved with neuro-linguistic programming about 38, 39 years ago. I was a youngster. I've always had an interest in psychology. The name TSpoon comes from wanting to stir in people. I do believe there is a Bible verse. I'm not a Bible basher. I'm not religious in any ways. But I did study the Bible quite intensively in my own pursuit of answers. And I did Buddhism, and I did all kinds of religions trying to find answers. And in this process, I've shaped what I think God is and who we are in God. And there is a verse in the Bible that talks about that God has given us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, for the success of life and godliness. And I think we have the goodness within us. We have the greatness within us. The potential is there, but it lies dormant for the most part. And what it requires is a proper bit of stirring, right? And we need the right tools to stir it. And I've researched, DISC and Myers and Briggs, and I'm a big fan of the Enneagram as well. And NLP just clicked for me, it really, really just clicked for me. So I on and off do this full time. And for many different clients, as it were. So whether it's individuals, whether it's school kids learning to cope at school, study techniques, or businesses, either upscaling businesses or starting new businesses. So it's all about just rearranging the mind so that you can get the most resourceful state to either grow, develop, whatever the case may be. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, thank you for that. So neuro-linguistic programming. That is such a big word. And I'm going to act now that I know absolutely nothing about it. Would you care to just elaborate a little bit more, what it is, how it affects us, and just give us a bit of info just about it?
Sure. So neuro-linguistic programming is a psychology that looks at the relationship between our thoughts, that's the neuro side, right? Linguist, literally the language that we use to speak, but also the language that we use to think, and then programming, which is behavior. So there's three components. It's thinking, it's speaking, and it's behavior. Yeah? And it was started in the 70s. Richard Brandler and John, I keep saying Grindler, it's not Grindler, it's Grinder, John Grinder. One of them is a mathematician, the other one of them is a psychotherapist. John Grinder being a mathematician Richard Brandler being the psychotherapist. And Brandler was fascinated by the concept of watching successful people do their thing, and then you ask them questions about how they did it in terms of identity, values, beliefs, thinking patterns, and then being able to duplicate it. So they together kind of formulated, or I say formulated, to me it's more like discovered, because I think it was there anyway, right? Discovered the language of the brain and the ability that we have to model success, to change our own states, our own behavioral states, our own identity, our own values and beliefs, in order to make us more resourceful. I always, I'm kicking the stand. I always go back to the word resourceful because there is a point of, we either limiting ourselves through our identity, through our values, through our beliefs. We can limit ourselves, or we putting ourselves in a state where we empower ourselves. And literally that's got to do with the way we think. It's got to do with the values that we hold, the definitions that we give ourselves, and the permissions that we grant ourselves to do or not to do. So that's neuro-linguistic programming. The stuff that I've shared with you, the stuff that you've seen in the lives is a tiny aspect of the core principles of neuro-linguistic programming. It's quite a comprehensive field, man. It really is quite a comprehensive field.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the programming part also comes into play, where we've got let's call it the reptile brain. Forgive me, I do not know the medical terms of everything. And that gives us the flight or fight or freeze sensation. So
yes,
when anything is directed at us unexpectedly and you have to react from a nature basis, those are the three defaults that you normally rely on.
Yes.
Whereas our frontal cortex is where we think about things, but in that instance, the reptile brain, takes over and it overrides your frontal cortex, your logical thinking about things.
Correct.
But then over and above that, there's the programmable brain. Once again, I do not know the terminology, that has got a higher function that kind of overrides the reptile brain.
Yes.
And where the programming comes in is with repetition and with let's call it the programming, because that's kind of where we are. That function can actually override our fight, flight, or freeze judgment.
Correct.
To give us a more insightful or more logical response to whatever situation we find ourselves in.
Correct.
Okay,
100%.
So that's part and parcel of the neuro-linguistic programming.
Correct.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong once again, a lot of this can be beneficial if you apply it to business purposes, or if you're a professional athlete, to get that edge over your competition, or to make split decisions based upon whatever census information that you gather at that point. And that's all to do with how you condition your brain to make those split-second decisions.
Correct.
Okay.
100% correct.
So do you delve into that side of the linguistic programming as well?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. So for the most part, the more modern day neuro-linguistic programming, they do talk about hypnosis. And that puts people on the back foot, and they say, oh, this is spooky and wooey, and it's all about hypnosis. But the act of, like you were saying, an athlete, let's say a gymnast, closing their eyes and working the routine through in their imagination, that is a form of hypnosis. And it is using the hypnosis and the imagination to program the programmable side of the brain that's going to override the reptilian, that we are not necessarily fear-driven, but rather that we are outcomes-driven. It works fantastic for the business industry. It works fantastic in personal development. It has huge impact on public speaking. There's been times on and off that I help public speakers get in stage fright. So you were talking about the fight or flight or the freeze mode. So a lot of the public speakers get the freeze mode. And the thing about our brain, our body doesn't know the difference between dream and reality. It doesn't know the difference. So it's the way we structure the language for it. So when public speaker gets up onto the stage, they feel the anxiety. And normally anxiety is the key for us. Are we going to fight or are we going to run? And now the subconscious mind starts looking, where is the threat coming from? Because we must run in the opposite direction, or we must face it and fight. But because you're standing in front of an audience, there is no obvious threat. That's what we go into the freeze mode, right? But if the brain doesn't know literally doesn't know the difference between anxiety and excitement.
Because that's the emotion.
It's an emotion. We've named it, and then we'll say, oh, it's anxiety. But then the brain has got a pre-programmed response to anxiety. Then it wants that program to run. And it's like starting a program on your computer. You press go, the exe file, and it's going to run. Yeah? It's going to run. Yeah. Where now we're saying to people doing public speaking, don't say that you're anxious, say you're excited. Because then the body goes into the alert mode, realizes there's no threat, evaluates the sensations of the excitement and says, yeah, I'm familiar with the excitement. Okay, we can calm down and not go into freeze mode or not go into fight mode. So that's part of the overriding of the reptilian brain that you were referring to.
I just quickly want to just interject here. I just want to give the comments a moment here. Michael Bueta, I'm going to give you a chance to answer that. And then Umbrian said she's got a question. So while you're answering Michael Bueta, maybe Umbrian, you can ask your question and then TSpoon can answer that for you next. So Michael asks, how would this work in business, preferably the legal spectrum of business?
Okay, so with business, there are a couple of aspects that is going to influence. One is rapport. So you spell that rapport, R-A-P-P-O-R-T. Ons praat nie van die Afrikaanse koerant die rapport nie. We are talking about there are 3 levels of trust. So we start with rapport, we go into trust, and then we develop loyalty. So on all the relationships that we have, whether it's with colleagues, whether it's with subordinates, whether it's with superiors, or whether it's with clients, we want to continually develop rapport. A lot of the success of business is based on the rapport that we have, including in sales. If I'm selling to a client, people buy trust first, product second. Traditional psychology says you've got 5 contact sessions with a client, then you need to close, right? On the 5th one, ideally. Where with NLP, they say, no, man, 10 to 15 minutes will bring you to the place where you can do that close. So you can reduce the sales time. In the legal side, I suppose you could use it to help identify lying, whether people are being truthful or not. And there is a way to actually get to intent, right? So we judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others by their actions. The languaging structure that comes with Neuro-Linguistic Programming allows you to evaluate the intention of people, not evaluate it, allows you to uncover it, then you can evaluate it, right? So the judgment is then not preferred. It doesn't put you in in a resourceful state. But, if you're going to judge your clients, well, then, yeah. And it has a way of improving communication, getting your message across. We were talking about the idea, having the light bulb moment. If you have an idea in your head, you want to clearly communicate that message to other people. If it's an emotional situation you want them to go with, there is a specific language pattern that you use the emotions, that you can make it emotional. That's called the Milton pattern, or the Milton model. But if you want it very specific, you want to delve down into the truth within the mind, then you're going to use the meta model. So there is various models that you can use to manage your language patterns depending on the results that you are looking for.
Thank you.
All right.
I see Michael has also commented. Thank you, sir.
Sorry. Okay. And then Umbreon asked, he said, oh, sorry, Rudolph.
No. Please carry on. I was about to ask, if you're going to address Umbreon's question.
Okay. Right. Just so Umbreon said, I Googled Thinking Thumbprint and couldn't find anything other than TSpoon's content. Is it something that you designed yourself, and is it unique to TSpoon?
Mina, it's all mine. So probably about 25, 26, 27 years ago, it was evident to me that in terms of the language patterns, it plays a large part, has a big impact on the way in which we think, the way in which we communicate. And neurolinguistics offers ways to look at these filters, but there is no test for it in itself. So I designed one, and then I took it to the HRSC to evaluate it, and the swines wouldn't even evaluate it. Can you believe it? But at that stage, neuro-linguistic programming was very new. There were no real NLP practitioners. I think in the beginning, there was like 4 of us in the country. There was a guy called Mand Creer that brought it into South Africa. He was a psychoanalyst. He spent some time in America, and he actually worked with John Grinder. And then he brought it into South Africa, and we had a whole seminar, and we were like, oh, this is great stuff. Being a counselor already, I was so I'm going to really shock you now. Hold on to your seat. I was a pastoral counselor. But it was about getting the results for me. And I watched him counsel a rape victim, and it was phenomenal. It was just the results that he got in a very short space of time in order to get this person to the place where they could then testify in court objectively. And that objectivity helped them win the case. So I thought, this is the new way to go. So myself, I went to America to go and learn, and spent some time there studying it, came back with it, and then just realized, between all of us that were then here doing it, there are certain tools that would help, that would work. We don't have them. So we started designing a lot of those tools themselves. So I've had probably about 18,000 people, 20,000 people do the Thinking Thumbprint in different contexts, school development, career planning, personal development, counseling situations. And it's my go-to tool. It is my go-to tool.
Well, from my side, I can attest to the fact that I think the feedback as to how you analyze our thumbprints, and Ellie, please let me know how it's applicable to you as well. But it is actually scary how spot on your let's call it the reading of the thumbprint is actually applied to me in my life.
Wow.
So I think obviously if it's yours. I just say kudos, to what you've achieved, because I'm sure there's a lot of time and effort invested in developing it or getting it to a state where it is today. I don't know how many iterations you had to go through before you are where you are now. But it's actually phenomenal. That's
Thank
just
you very
now
much.
for me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I actually do have a question, and I do want to just pile on to what Rudolf says. It is, I don't know if this is a thing, but I personally believe that understanding something about yourself can open so many doors. And in the case of healing, I think understanding something can also be very healing. So for me too, I exhaust myself with my brain. I overthink things and I exhaust myself with my brain. And just hearing some of the things you said about that chart has really just calmed my brain down a little bit, because I understand certain things about myself now that I knew was there but couldn't quite understand what it was. But it also brings me to the question. Sorry, I've actually written it down here. Right. So in your video, I watched the video from the live that you did on Saturday. And in the video, you say that you often come across people that will disagree with you and say that, no, but this is not me, right? So for Rudolf to say that we all, I think, have said that we strongly relate to the results, we do think that there's accuracy there. Would you say that's because we've got we've delved a little bit deeper than people that haven't, that we can understand those things about ourselves?
Yes. And you're open to self-reflection.
Yeah.
The key is the self-reflection, the ability to look at yourself objectively. So there are a lot of people that A, don't do it, B, don't like the thought of doing it. It's a threat to them. For a lot of people, they feel like they're being exposed. They made vulnerable by having this information out there. So the best way to deal with it is denial. When I was going through the trial processes, the thing that I also realized is sometimes we have interfering partners, mothers, fathers that stand over the person and interpret the question for them and want them to answer the question the way in which they've interpreted. Then we often get incomplete, evidence.
Contamination.
We get contamination, I had one lady sit and read in the days where it was still a paper test. I then had to calculate all the answers, making little boxes and ticks. So having the computer version is very nice. She sat and read all the questions to her daughter and then answered it herself. So by the end of the sensory perception feedback, I was like, no, I don't think this is your daughter. I think this is very much you. Because the point of the test is I don't need that test to evaluate, to identify these things in people. I don't need it. The test is a way to show people themselves. It's a mirror of their mental processes. So the more you delve into that mirror, the clearer or the more familiar you're going to get with your image. Great. So when somebody is wrong or controlled or manipulated or confused or whatever the case may be on the test, I'm not fooled by that. That doesn't sway me. I can see them visuals, I can see them auditories, I can see them kinesthetics. We'll sort them. And I turned to the mother and I said, this is you, this is not your daughter. What makes you think that? I said, I don't know, just interpretation. Gut feel. Yeah.
So Ambrian has also made a comment. She says, I think it is a good way to measure how far you've come in your healing process. But I think I want to add to that and say it's not just necessarily healing, it is also self-improvement.
Yes.
If you want to see that as healing, then great, but I think that's a tool that can be used, I want to say almost on a daily basis.
Yes.
Let me just elaborate. I mean, we've had a great session on Saturday, and once again, thank you for your time. Explaining, the disconnect from your emotion, because I mean, obviously We've just discussed, that emotion is it's not a true reflection. And Saturday after, no, sorry, it was Sunday. Sunday I was driving, and at the traffic light, I was waiting for oncoming traffic, to turn right onto the highway. And two vehicles, I say two because was not just one, did not put in an indicator to say, well, they are also going to turn, so that I can proceed and join them on the slipway. And immediately I was so frustrated, and I said, I had a passenger with me in the car, and I said, if only they just switched on the indicator. And at that moment it snapped. And I thought, well, if I was now the passenger looking at myself, how I interpreted the situation, that frustration immediately went away.
Wow.
And then I thought, well, let me just share it with you, because that's applicable like literally a day later than when we discussed it.
Yep.
So for me, that's an improvement skill. So I still got the anger or the frustration, from the situation, but I recognized it almost immediately.
Yep.
And I dealt with it, in my own way.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You recognized where it came from.
Yeah.
You knew where it came from, and you knew what to do with it. You can acknowledge it and let it go, and that is what it is. Lekker.
Yeah.
Well
so
done.
If you did not explain it to me in that terms, I don't think I would have, come to the realization that I'm actually, just wasting my time. Actually, that's just an unnecessary frustration on the road. That's basically it.
Love it. Love it. Very good.
So Umbrian is asking, I know you said you want to broaden your market. Do you mean Teams online meetings for corporates?
Yes, we do. The corporate program is a lot of fun in that when you've got everybody in the room, and I've got a red line, I take tape and I put a red line down the middle of the training, and then I'll say, right, if you're a high visual, step up to the line. And they step up to the line and they look around the room, and all right, this is what you do. And then there's no hiding. Then they own their behavior. And we go through all of the results, stepping up to the line to own it. So it's a lot of fun. It helps you get to know one another. It improves the communication. And it does have the added benefit of when you have clients walking in, that if in the process, we teach them how to recognize it in others. The tool is nice, the Thinking Thumbprint is nice, but what I want for everybody is when you are talking to somebody like Umbrian with the Enneagram, I want you to pick out, is this a visual I'm talking to, an auditory, or towards, or away from, internal, external, because then you can adjust your approach to them. So then there's a secret power, a very powerful technique in neurolinguistics called mirroring. So if I then mirror people with that, I'm opening the connection for the rapport. I speed up the rapport connection, and it just opens the gateway for communication. Very, very, very powerful. So we teach them in the corporate meetings to do that. And then I have a chat to the management, and I say to them, in terms of motivation, this is the way you must handle Ellie, but it's different to Rudolph. So we'll look at their motivation styles, So it definitely gives a lot more insight to the people that you work with, to dealing with your clients, improving communication, and often improving systems within the organization, because that's another passion of mine, but that's another story. Yeah. But yes, we can definitely.
That is interesting, because you're almost molding yourself to your client. There's like a specific experience with specific people, and obviously that yields a better result, or a better outcome. But I just want to also touch on what Rudolf was just saying by implementing some of what you're learning. And again, a lot of what I have to say comes from that I really should not have missed that live on Saturday, because that is mind-blowing.
It was
But yeah, And but at least I have the video now, so thank you for that,
You're
Teaspoon.
most welcome.
But it's the 5 core values. You were talking about the 5 core values, and you said that sometimes you ask people, give me your 5 core values, and they'll give you like honesty and freedom, and I asked my husband, and he could only give me 3 right off the bat. But again, and I feel like, everybody, it's like almost like a instinct just to say honesty and this, but are you actually thinking about your values? Are you actually seeing them incorporated in your life when you say what those values are? And then I sat and I tried to think about what my 5 core values are, and I had to really think about it. And I wanted to write things like loyalty, honesty, all these things, because it almost feels instinctive to say that. But I had to really, really think about how I incorporate my values in my everyday life. So that was interesting to me as well.
Love it. That is a pathway you need to pursue more, Ellie. And one of the key ways of helping you find the core, let me step back and just say, we are conditioned by society to say honesty and loyalty. Yeah? We are conditioned by society. So I don't. I in the beginning, I think I had honesty there at a point, and then I decided, no, I don't care. I don't care if people lie to me. So now I've got a buddy who is a compulsive liar. And I said to him, I looked at him one day and I said to him, I know you're lying, right? And he's like, he calls me Uncle John. He goes, yeah, Uncle John, I know. I said, then why do you do it? Because I'm hoping that you'll like me more because of it. I said, I'm not going to like you any more or any less. I listen to your lies and I love you anyway. So I am not controlled by whether or not people are honest with me. It doesn't faze me. They've got their reasons. If you then explore what angers you, what gets you riled, what gets you upset, you're going to find the deeper values. Because we'll talk about, honesty is there, freedom is there. I think for a lot of people, once we start dealing with values and start actually diving into honesty and freedom are not going to be there. We like it. It sounds novel, but it's not necessarily going to be there. So look at what makes you angry and then ask you, what about that situation? So like Rudolph, these guys with their indicator, what about them? And I'm asking you now, Rudolph, what about them not using their indicator annoyed you so much? Share with us.
So for me, it was wasting my time. We're literally talking about 2 or 3 seconds longer, that I had to wait. But it felt like, I was robbed of my time. So that to me was the core, let's call it the emotion or the value that was triggered.
And what makes time important to you? Why is that important to you?
So I said I don't know why it's important, but it is. When I think about that specific incident, it's just I could have gotten to my destination earlier, and I'm literally, as I say, it's like a few seconds. It's not as if I would have waited 5 hours, but it's just that freedom was taken away from me. So I suppose that's another value that I can associate to that is my choice of freedom.
Is it freedom or is it freedom of choice?
Freedom of choice. I think that's probably the crux of the value as well. So it might be more than one value. I don't know. I need to give it some thought, to say, well, okay, what was it actually that was the trigger point, basically?
Yes.
But those two, I would say, is I would think in my mind, is the top 2 contenders.
Okay.
So that's what I would say. I don't know from your side if you have to give a analysis. What would your thoughts on it be? But give or take, I think that's.
So let's ask another question. I want to know from you. Them taking away your freedom of choice. What makes that important to you?
Well, that's now where we come to the boundaries, I suppose. If we think about it in that terms, so now I don't want to call it I've been put into a box or put a label on, because that's not kind of where we are. But I am now forced into a situation which I did not choose to be in. That's pretty much, I think,
Okay.
if I say boundaries, that's the boundary that was set.
Okay. And then what makes that important to you? Why is that? What's the underlying?
To be quite honest, I do not know.
Okay. So that's good. I'm happy with that. So with time, you went nowhere. When I asked you, why is time important? You just said time. So I'm happy that that's a core value.
Yeah.
When we spoke about the freedom of choice, you went to boundaries. So the value line underneath the freedom of choice is boundaries.
Yeah.
So by asking the question, and what makes that important to you, you keep asking that question until you did. You said, well, I don't know what's any deeper than boundaries. Well,
Yeah.
great. Then that means we've hit rock bottom. Then we're at the core. So two of yours, I'm going to say, is time, and then boundaries is going to come into play. But we won't discredit the freedom of choice either just yet.
Yeah.
We will have a look at it a little bit later.
I think Reyes also, nailed it in the comments. She says boundaries preserve self-respect and promote self-preservation.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that there's some truth to
Beautiful.
that.
I have a question with regards to when you were unpacking my chart. You mentioned, I asked you a question about balance, and you said
Yes.
that you'll explain it in a future live, but you don't usually score, associate, and disassociate because it's too intrusive. So
Yes.
I wanted to know, what do you mean by that?
Okay. So when you come into the lives and I start talking about how emotions are the messengers of values, and people like their emotions. They like their emotions, especially, and this is not to offend anybody. This is not to, I'm a teaspoon. I like to stir. Especially people that have gone through traumas, they shape their identity by the emotions that trauma then has caused. And they are so comfortable with those emotions. Do you know what I mean? So for me to come along and say, da, 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 1, 2, 3, we can change that emotion. I'm basically saying to them, Biscuit, we can dismantle your identity really quickly and reestablish it in something else. It is very unsettling for people. It feels like their whole being is being ripped out from underneath them, and it makes them feel very unstable. And I've got a lot of respect for that. And I kind of say to people, well, you do you, boo. I'm happy for you to maintain the emotional connections that you have. Keep the emotions to help shape your identity, right? And I'm not, a lot of those people are like, to change beliefs is difficult, to sort the emotions is very complicated. It isn't. But because people say it is, then for them it is. And that's okay. That's them. I'm happy for them. For me, where I've come from, I don't want to be limited by those emotions. I want to be in a more resourceful state. So discovering that I can chop and change, I can change my emotions as quick as I can change my shirt. Wow, I love that. I love that. I love that. So I don't want to do the associate and disassociate, because the associate and disassociate is where we put ourselves inside the emotion, or we remove ourselves from the emotion, that we can be more objective. And you say that to people, dan raak hulle damoer, because now I'm just saying, you're so absorbed by your emotions, you're not being objective anymore.
Right.
So I don't want to offend, do you know what I mean?
Right.
I don't want to push them to the place, because at some point we'll have enough of a discussion, we'll develop the rapport over a period of time, that then I will be able to, we'll uncover those things and bring in change differently, without offending them. The idea is that we don't offend them in the process.
So then it stands to reason then that the expression "a tiger that can't change his spots" is inaccurate, because a tiger can change his spots.
Well, considering a tiger doesn't have spots, a leopard has spots, you're right. No, I'm teasing you. So I believe identity is liquid. My experience has been, if you have an objective that you are pursuing, you will shape your identity to achieve that. Ne? It's the people that are pursuing nothing that find change in terms of their identity and emotions the hardest. Because what are they changing to? What are they changing for? There is no drive behind it. So it is those that are not in the pursuit of purpose that are the ones that argue with me the most about the fact that, the leopard cannot change his spots and the tiger cannot change her spots. They are fixed. It's not true. It's not true.
Right.
Coming back to the NLP,
yes.
Are there any misperceptions? If you deal with somebody, I take it it's probably quite common, that people thinks it's something and it's totally the opposite or something of that nature. But are there typical or how should I say obvious misperceptions or misconceptions about the programming?
About neuro-linguistic programming, yes. One that especially around the hypnosis. When you start talking about hypnosis, people have the strangest ideas and perceptions about hypnosis, and that's really largely due to Hollywood. So thank you very much, Hollywood, for making our lives really, really difficult. And then everybody says, "Oh, you can hypnotize. Try and hypnotize me. I'm not. You're not able to hypnotize me." Well, exactly, Umbreon. Hypnosis is a form of meditation.
So sorry, TSpoon, just quickly, can you hypnotize? Do you know how to do that?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Sorry, I just wanted to know that.
Can we do it real quickly for everybody in the room? Let's hypnotize everybody at the same time.
Let's do it.
Are you ready? Right. What I want you to do is I want you to think about a superhero that you like and respect. Right? Think about that superhero.
That's me.
Now, what I want you to do is I want you to pose like they would. Even if you need to stand, pose like they would. And now what I want you to do, Rudolph, introduce yourself as your superhero. Tell us who you are and tell us what your greatest strength is, please.
Okay, so I'm Superman and, I am invincible. Yeah.
Ellie?
Okay, so I'm going to pretend like I'm hanging from a building. I'm Spider-Man and I can climb buildings.
Okay. Rudolph, how did you feel while you were doing that?
I felt invincible, so yes.
Ellie, how did you feel while you were doing that?
I felt like I could climb imagined buildings.
That was a very controlled answer, young lady, very controlled. So that is the art of hypnosis. The art of hypnosis. Hypnosis, we can hypnotize ourselves in the moment, where we get a model of something and we imitate it, that it then manifests in our body. You've hypnotized yourself, and that's the effect of it. Are we going to have people running around going cluck, 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 I'm a chicken, I'm a chicken? No. That's thank you, Hollywood. You will do nothing under hypnosis that you wouldn't do out of hypnosis. End of story. End of story. So if somebody claims they got naked under hypnosis, you got to know that individual is what do they call it, a nudist or a naturalist, and would get naked anyway. You're not going to do anything under hypnosis that you wouldn't normally do.
So what then about when, when we see in the movies, they hypnotize people to remember things like traumatic experiences and stuff?
Yes, 100%. Because your unconscious mind forgets nothing, right? From the time you were born to the time you die, the unconscious mind retains every event. Who you met, when you met them, how you met them, the discussions that you had, retains absolutely everything. Our ego and our conscious mind get in the way of recalling that information. So what we do in hypnosis is you move the conscious mind out of the way, and you allow the unconscious mind to give the full details. Yeah.
Okay.
But that person is not going to be in a coma where they then suddenly wake up and don't know what they shared. The conscious mind is still in the background. They still have a consciousness of what is going on. They will be aware. They'll be fully aware. It's just accessing that information. But we can do that for ourselves. I often do it. I'm terrible with names. I'll see somebody in the street and, "Hi, John, how are you?" They've been on my course 10 years ago. Now I must remember their names. I've had thousands of people on my courses. And I'll say to my unconscious mind, who are they? What course were they on? Now, if I'm lucky, it will prompt me when they are still with me, while I'm still talking to them, and I can drop their name in conversation. And I look like a superhero with great memory. No? Otherwise, I turn around and I walk away and I'm like, yes, that was, Ellie. She was on a whatever course back, in the day. So, yeah. So we can do it. We can do it while we're standing there talking to people. Are there different levels of hypnosis? Yes, absolutely. Hypnotizable in others is someone highly susceptible. There are some people that learn to associate naturally a lot better than others, so they can A, hypnotize themselves easier, and B, it's easier to deal with them and we call it under hypnosis. You're not under anything. It's in a state of relaxation, meditation. Yeah? So, yeah. But we'd like to go deeper. Okay. We can explore that embryo.
Go ahead and answer embryology, because I'm sure you would probably know how to do that.
It is a process. It's just we'll sit at a point. It becomes a long discussion in itself. Ray, having difficulty in getting into the trance is just because your conscious mind is too active and getting in the way. And we've got this thing where we think, going into a state of meditation or going into a trance is clearing your mind. It's not. You're not clearing. You can't clear your mind. That doesn't work. It is about just focusing the thoughts for specific outcomes. When you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, it's the same as changing emotions. If you want to deal with anger, well, why are you dealing with it? So until you can answer the why, the how is going to be complicated for you.
So I've got a question, and it kind of borders to what you've mentioned earlier on, about what you offer, I think you call it your 5 R's of learning.
Yes.
And I think that's a whole different discussion on its own, if you permit us to do it in the future.
Yes.
But so obviously part and parcel of, let's call it our brain health is doing neuroplasticity.
Yes.
Now there's many ways of doing that. I'm aware of that, that it can be something as easy as taking some of mushrooms. It could be forcing yourself to learn new information, either reading or interacting like we're doing now, that constantly builds those new neuro pathways.
Yes.
Learning a new skill, for instance.
Yes.
I think art is also associated to the plasticity.
Correct.
Now, with the neuro let's call it the programming side of it. Can you kind of prompt your subconscious now to become more conscious by utilizing that plasticity? Is that a technique that can be learned?
Beautiful. Love it. Yeah. You don't mess about with these questions, Rudolph.
Well, we try.
You really, when you deep dive, you really deep dive. No, that is a fantastic question.
Thank you.
Yes, 100%. So the whole exercise that we do with the inverted triangle, where we have identity, values, beliefs, skills, behavior, you literally create an identity of neuroplasticity. Whoa, I can't even say the word plasticity. Yeah, the plastic stuff. Yeah. Cool. So then back in the day for me, I decided that it was one of the courses. There was a couple of Americans that came over to South Africa, and we were talking about mastery of skills, and they said, let's create an identity that is going to help you master skills. And I took one as being a lifelong learner. So I'm 56 years old. When I was 52, I signed up UNISA to do my third degree. So learning all the time, going for new things. AI comes out. People my age are looking at it and saying, what? I don't even understand it. They don't even know how to send a WhatsApp. Never mind, what the hell is AI? All of the programming that I've done for the Thinking Thumbprint, I've taught myself. I've learned it. I've dived into it because I've created that identity where the brain is saying, I'm happy to learn. I'm excited to learn. We get into that state where I'm a sapio-intellectual, sapiosexual, if you know what that means. Yeah. Okay. Where stimulation is literally just through intelligence. Yeah. So absolutely, Rudolph, absolutely. Set yourself, you take that triangle, and that's what I want to do on Saturday. I want to show people on Saturdays, how do you take that triangle and actually design an identity? And then you associate into the positive of it and you disassociate out of the negative of it. So then you both become excited and objective at the same time.
So it's not just a trauma tool, it's also a tool for self-development. That's pretty
absolutely
much what it boils down to.
Skill mastery.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah. Skill mastery like you cannot believe. Fantastic. I see there's a question. If I could instantly master one skill, what would it be? Love languages. I would love to learn to speak many languages. I want to be able to walk into a room, have a conversation with people a little bit, and then start speaking their language. I would love that. Does hypnosis promote neuroplasticity? It depends what you are doing under the hypnosis. It can, or it can go the opposite way and develop a stubborn mind. So it is about what you are putting into it at the time of the hypnosis. Okay. Yes, thank you very much for the gifting. Much appreciated. Okay, so that's them.
All right, so I have another question.
Yes,
just going off again from the video. So you mentioned that, when you work on the surface level things, you're changing behavior, but it's not going to be lasting, right? So you need to go down to the identity and change the identity, right? So what would you say if you had to give advice? What is the biggest thing that you can do to change the identity? What is the most important thing you can do?
Values. So the identity literally stands on the pillars of your values. So if you want to change the identity, what you need to do is reprioritize your values and give them clear definitions. It's the value with its clear definition that is going to inspire the beliefs, and then the beliefs will inspire the emotion. So it's a knock-on effect. Ideally, once you have sat down and designed the identity, so that's going through the whole exercise, right? You define the identity, you look at the values, maybe find yourself some resourceful beliefs that you can put in place, what skills would be necessary, and then literally imagine the behavior. What would you do? What would you sound like? You know, what are your arms doing? What are your legs doing? What's your face doing? What would you look like? What would you sound like being in this identity? And then associate into it. The more you associate into it, the stronger you associate into it, the more that identity will be ingrained into the unconscious and will start generating the results for you. 100%. But start with the values.
Okay.
And if there's changes that we need to make, we don't always have to change the identity. Sometimes it's about rearranging the priority of the values. So as much as we've got core values, with people not exploring their values, those values have been put in there by the time they were 5, 6, 7 years old by other people. So we grow up with other people's definitions, you know. So when we know this, what we can do is we can sit and evaluate those values, like honesty, like freedom. We can go and look at it and say, but, you know, hold on, do I actually agree with the interpretation that I have, with the definition of that I have? Or can I put a definition in there that would be more resourceful for me and create the life that I want, rather than just being a carbon copy of what society says?
Right. Because I feel like values sometimes it's kind of subjective to, I think, religion and culture and things like that as well. So we adopt values from those things and don't fully, I think, not authentically sometimes align with those values.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, I love
it.
that.
You've nailed it on the head. So there's an exercise that I call the values matrix. So the matrix is not the movie. We're not talking about the movie. So if you draw a grid, right? So obviously you want to do the core values first. Know what your values are. Martin, how's it, buddy? So you go and you list your values here. So let's say you're saying honesty. Oh, wait, let's put it here. Honesty, freedom. And now you look at your roles. So the role is maybe in your job. So maybe it's got something to do with your job, or as a spouse, right? And then you take it and you go to the block. So under honesty with job, what does it mean for you? What does it mean? What is the definition that you have for it? And what is the behavior you're hoping to achieve out of it? You define that in this block. And now we go to job and freedom. And you define what the definition is there. It's going to be a different definition than for spouse. Yeah? And once you go through 5 or 6, 7, whatever roles, identities, you're going to have a very holistic interpretation of that. Then if you sit and you look at all of these definitions for freedom, or all of the definitions for honesty, you can, out of that, have a one-liner or two-liner that is going to summarize it for you. Then that's what you're going to be functioning on. So I call this the values role matrix. It's an exercise, and we will do it at some point in one of the lives. Normally on a Saturday, we'll do this. We'll sit and work through it. And then you associate yourself into the definition. If you were creating this in your life, what would you feel? What would the emotion be? Let's associate into it. Let's experience it from first person. And that's the programming side. We've just programmed the identity that's going to trigger the behavior going forward.
Right.
So then you don't even have to consciously think about what needs to come out. It's going to come out because there is an inevitability of identity.
Right. Right, that's perfect. Thank you. And I can't wait for that live. I just want to mention everybody in the comments, for anybody who does not follow TSpoon and you're interested in this topic, please go ahead and follow TSpoon, because he does these lives every week where he dives into this. I have been saying it's like a deep dive into the self, whether it is for business or healing or self-development or whatever, but definitely it goes into the self quite deeply, and I love that.
So I'm going to be facetious, if I may.
Please do.
A lot of what we've shared so far is not deep. This is the basics. We haven't got to the deep stuff yet.
Right. So do you mean in what we've learned so far, or do you mean tonight specifically?
What we've learned so far, what I've shared with in the past lives. That's not the deep stuff. That's right. The basics.
And I was going to ask about that, because you did say earlier on that it's just scratching the surface. This is just a small part of a much broader thing. And I was going to ask you, for this whole process to be successful, do you need to know the entirety of it, or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I've got a question that kind of adds on to what Ellie is asking. So, I mean, before, I think it was Umbrian's live that we've done with the Enneagrams, we haven't interacted. And it was only, I would say, about a week or maybe two later that I've done the thumbprint.
Yes.
Now, do you do profiling? I mean, if you the little bit of interaction we've had, and it has not been much, but the little bit of interaction that we've had, was that enough to do some sort of a profile from your side, a profile on me to say, well, okay, this guy will fall, and I'm going to use the term, into this kind of box? Is that something that you use? And obviously, if you've got the skill set, apply that to a business venture as well, where you can say, well, okay, I'm dealing with this kind of person. This is how I need to approach that person without having done the, let's call it, the analysis.
Yes. So yes, yes, and yes.
Okay. So profiling does come into play.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a dangerous thing to profile somebody else. When Umbrian was doing the Enneagram, she says, they teach you when you do the Enneagram that you mustn't classify somebody in one of the types.
Yeah.
Because you're not privy to their private thoughts. You're not privy to their whole life. We've got a very small glimpse of them, right? But if I'm dealing with somebody in a business context, that's enough information that I need. I will get the information that I need to profile them, that I can do a successful profiling process and design my presentation to address them in the moment. If I know how, and this is why I advocate, don't just go and do the Thinking Thumbprint. Learn how to recognize it in other people, because then while you are communicating with them, you can change your approach. Now I recognize Ellie is she's a visual, she's high detail, she's towards. I'm not going to mess about. I'm going to get into the details. I'm going to make sure I have brochures. I'm going to leave her with material. And then I also know she's got a time factor in there. I'm going to leave her for a day or two. And then I'm going to, when I come back to her, I'm going to be ready to hit the ground running. Because as the high towards, when she's made that decision, she's going to run. She's going to run. And then I need to keep up with her. If I don't keep up with her as a service provider, I'm going to disappoint her, going to frustrate her, then she's going to look for somebody else. So I can get all of that information from a 3 to 5 minute discussion, but more importantly, I will generate a generic presentation and I'll adjust it to the people while I'm in in the meeting and help them make the decision. Yes.
Now, a follow-up on that question would be, obviously you've seen now my thumbprint. How would you have related that now with your initial profiling? Does it kind of correspond? Was there surprises? How do you juggle those balls together?
So in terms of what I had imagined would be on the graphs, so in terms of the kinesthetic being there, there were a couple of graphs that you balanced that I was surprised by. I was expecting maybe a little bit higher away from, rather than an equal graph. So it doesn't surprise me simply because I don't have the full picture when I'm communicating with you. You know what I mean? But there were a couple of them there that did, like I said, the balancing of that graph was quite impressive. How high your visual was also that was quite a bit of a surprise for me. I thought it would be a lot higher in terms of the kinesthetic. But the thing for me is also if we take 2 or 3 people that let's say your highest was visual, Ellie's highest was visual, but mine is auditory, and my visual is very small, right? It's not an exam where I then say, oh, because Ellie scored 100% in it, her visual processing is a superpower. Where Rudolph's was at a 60%, but mine was at only a 30%. I'm not looking at the percentages in terms of the strength and the ability of that. I might be an auditory dominant, and with you being a kinesthetic, I look at your ability to process the visual content. It's damn quick. It's quick. You don't let it on. You've got that high internal score face where it's just deadpan. You know, there's no expression on it. So that's then surprising. You're not giving on in terms of the face that you're processing the information that quickly. Do you understand? But that doesn't diminish my ability as a visual.
Yeah.
Even though that's not my highest. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's just your dominant sense that you associate better with. Yeah.
And it's just literally, oh, that's your preference. That's all it is. Oh, it's your preference. Those people could be like super. Unzing, for example, he does video editing. Yes, visual was up there. Yes, kinesthetic was up there. Him working with movies, him making movies. I know that visual processing, even though it wasn't as high as his kinesthetic, is going to be like way past mine. Do you know what I mean? Because he's dealing with that visual detail all the time. Somebody that does art, yes, I agree. Their visual processing is going to be a lot better than mine. Eh? So yeah, it is in not me comparing my visual to Ellie, but Ellie's ability, that's the dominant. She's happy with that. Mine, it's not the dominant. It's just it's not the dominant. Doesn't make it weaker. It doesn't make it less valuable to me, I suppose. It's just not my preferred way. That's all. Yeah.
So I have a question. Knowing this about yourself helps you understand how you, like you say, absorb information, and therefore also can give you an understanding of how you can learn, right?
Yeah.
So can this test be done by kids?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm not a big fan of doing it before they're about 10, 11, because a lot of the stuff is still in helter-skelter. It's moving all over the place. The sensory processing is probably settled by 10, 11, settle in by 10, 11. So we can help them start to figure out their learning style. And then they can start what can we say, refining their skills with those senses going into the future. But I'm also cautious, as much as I say we will identify the learning style, which of the senses you're using, we'll help them process the majority of the information in that way, but not exclusively, because we want them to develop the other senses as well.
Right.
Because the more of the senses that you are using, the more complete the information will be in your memory. So we're looking for completeness, wholeness, rather than just speed, for example. If it's just speed, then we teach them to be a visual. We'll teach them all to be a visual, even if it's not their dominant. But we want wholeness. Eh?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've also mentioned, I think we've spoken about it. Sorry, Ellie.
No, go ahead.
We've also spoken about it over the weekend, that from the age of roughly about 5, that's where you can start to do the association or disassociation. So some portions, obviously at a younger age or a younger maturity can already be, I suppose, adopted. Is that the right terminology?
Yeah. So with parents' guidance or a mentor's guidance, you can deal with it with younger children. But from 5 onwards, they're going to have a fair understanding on how to do it. As long as you as the parent or whoever the guardian is that's doing it with them understands the language patterns, that you don't put them into a deeper hole. Do you know what I mean? There is a thing of, so just an exercise, there was a lady that was going through some depression, right? So we decided, okay, we looked at the values and everything else, and then she wanted, there's an exercise called the swish pattern. So that which was depressing her, you interchange with that which excites, right? So she was being an auditory, we built in a sound trigger. So this relates to hypnosis. So there's a thing called anchoring. Anchoring is about firing up an emotion when you want it in an ideal state. So what you do is you get them to experience the emotion and you set what we call a trigger, right? So do the superhero thing, right? Do the superhero thing. Do your superhero thing. Come, do your superhero thing. Come, do your super, right. What I want you to do is I want you to feel the emotion of that superhero. Are you feeling confident? Are you feeling invincible? Are you forceful? Are you strong? With that emotion, I want you to touch your thumb to your pinky. And just feel the feelings. Just feel the feelings. Right, let it go. Let it go. And then we'll do it again. And then what we're doing is we're setting a trigger, right?
So it's like the dogs and the bell. If you want to feed your dogs at a certain time or a certain event, you associate that feeling or that action to a specific mindset.
Correct.
Okay.
So now you get into a situation, let's say I'm on the red carpet with a boss or I'm dealing with a new client. I want to feel like a superhero. I want to have the confidence and the strength. I fire the trigger. Those emotions pop up in me and I communicate from that. That's what they're going to get from me, regardless of what my true emotional state is. Yeah? So I do this exercise with this lady and she picked a sound. So she didn't pick a movement, she picked a sound. And the sound was of an old cash register. So the whole cha-ching thing happened, whole cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. 3 days later, she phoned me and she was like, she says, I'm a bit embarrassed to tell you this, but she works in a shop where they've got one of these old cash registers. So every time the cash register was going off, it was putting her in a state. By 9 o'clock in the morning, she was being aroused to the place of sexual fulfillment, That's how rough it was. So we had to change the trigger. So you got to be careful what triggers you pick, what words you are using in it, because you can make what should be a resourceful state a very unresourceful state.
Right.
Yeah.
So I suppose sorry, Ellie, I don't know if you want to add to it or ask.
No, I'm good with that, yeah.
So one thing that we haven't spoken about, and I suppose that goes hand in hand with let's call it the hypnosis of things, is obviously is phobias. From what I understand, nobody is born with a fear of spiders or a fear of I don't know, people or closed spaces, or you name it. The phobias are out there. And I take it with these, let's call it the programming techniques, you can address that phobia. Probably, I'm not sure if it will be able to say, well, at the root cause, but just the emotion, I think, is probably the correct association.
Yep.
But how would you, if I've got now a spear of spiders, what would your let's say your approach be to it, to assist in overcoming that? Is it exactly the same as to how you do the roles, the let's call it the inverted triangle? I don't know if there's a specific word for that
the identity model. Yeah. It's called the identity model. So yeah. So yes. I did a lecture at a college, and the principal had an intense fear when he was locking up in the college, because then he had to switch the lights off and then walk down a long passage past all the classrooms and go out the door, then lock that door. But this long passage he had to do in the darkness because he had to switch the lights off here. And he said to me, he was explaining to me at lunch that hy is met die helm gebore.
Yeah. So you see the ghosts.
Hy sien hulle jaag hom hierdie gangetjie af, né? So dan hol hy. And he's quite a big guy. So then he would absolutely panic and then run down this whole passage. Okay. So what we did is we got down to the bottom and we first addressed the issue of met die helm gebore.
Yeah.
So I say to him, what does that mean? And he was like, die soutie verstaan nou nie wat dit beteken nie. And then he explained it to me and I said, okay, and do you believe it? And he was like, that's the first time anybody's asked me. I said, okay, well, I'm asking you, do you believe that because of having die baarmoeder oor jou kop, nou toe jy nou gebore is, jy kan nou spooke sien, né? And he's like, actually, now that you mention it, no, not really. I said, okay. And in terms of ghosts, do you believe in ghosts? He says, no, he's religious. He goes to church, so he's not into ghosts. I said, okay. So when you switch the light off, what's chasing you? He says, my imagination. I said, oh, okay. And left it at that. That's where we left it. About 3 months later, I was back there for another course, and I said to him, how goes it with the Ghostbusters down the passage? And he was like, what are you talking about? He couldn't even remember the event.
Okay.
So if you get to utilize that identity triangle with association and disassociation, you can empower yourself with skills or you can remove phobias. Powerful.
So same technique, same tools, different scenario.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Brianna's been trying to say something in the comments, but her comments keep getting ghosted. So she's jumped in a box to tell us what it is she's trying to say.
Sure.
Okay, so the question that I have is, what info in the Thinking Thumbprint don't you disclose on the lives due to its sensitive nature?
Brian, it is about the associate and disassociate, what the natural tendency is. Because then people, like I was saying, people associate themselves into negative beliefs, but they then structure their identity on the basis of those beliefs. We've got artists that do that, and that helps them paint well. So they become very defensive about their ability to be creative that's linked to their emotions. So I don't get into the associate and disassociate.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
I also wanted to just ask something also about something that actually came up earlier, and that was the subconscious, right? So the subconscious, you say, stores all information, right? And it's something that came up in a video that Rudolph and I watched a while ago. And Rudolph, that video was also about this topic, right? Neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah.
I think so. And it basically, when we talk about a gut feeling, right?
Yes.
We are basically, it's our subconscious remembering things. Is that, would you say that that's accurate?
Yes.
Right.
Very accurate. Yep. So often, and people are not sure where they get the information from. So then they think they're psychic, or they draw in information from wherever. But you got to understand, in terms of the unconscious mind, it picks up a lot of information. But that information isn't filtered as such into the conscious mind. We don't become aware of that information. So now I'm talking to somebody, the subconscious mind is reading all of the body language. Looks at the shape of the face, says, oh, this is a bucket face, this is a knowledgeable person, but it's got a tight pointy chin, oh, sensitive, oh, it's figuring all of this information. And it just gives you that gut feel, because it's too much information to dump into your conscious mind. You would not keep track of that information. So it communicates it to you in a way that you're going to understand the message and be able to interpret the message for yourself. Gut feel. Learn to trust the gut feel. And then you can take it a step further and ask gut feel. Gut feel, what is the evidence supporting this? And you'll just get these subtle hints to look in specific directions, or listen to key phrases, or words will stand out, or behaviors, or movements, or a twitch, or whatever will just stand out for you. Don't disregard it. That's your subconscious mind pointing out where it got the evidence to generate that gut feel.
Right. That's interesting. I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
Because it is. Sometimes you're faced with something and you get a feeling about it, but you don't understand where that comes from. So, yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to try that.
Yep.
And then I wanted to ask a general question and please feel free, if you don't want to share, you don't have to, but for everybody that has been joining TSpoon's lives, Rudolph, you as well, what is one thing that you guys discovered about yourself that is going to change the way you do things, or the way you're going to be seeing, looking at life, or just something that will even change your life? What is one thing that you've taken from TSpoon so far that is just so valuable?
Love it. Beautiful.
Yeah,
question.
I would like to know that. Something that you may have learned about yourself, or Rudolph?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's something I've learned about myself, but definitely, and once again, I'm going back to the session on Saturday, the one, unfortunately, Ellie, you missed out on, is obviously, as I said, already, for me, I've already used that tool to kind of, I wouldn't say reverse the emotion, but to nullify the emotion.
Yes.
And that to me has been, when I realized that, it just snapped in my mind and say, well, okay, this is powerful. Because, something that would have frustrated me maybe for half an hour afterwards, is just there and then it was stopped in its tracks and life goes on. So I see myself as pretty much as a level-headed individual, yeah, so it's just, and I think this is just another, I want to call it the crux to lean on, to just maintain that levelness. I'm just a firm believer that if you think rationally about some things, that requires like a stable platform. So that to me was as I say, it was gold. Realizing, and it's a small technique. It does not take much, but just knowing how to apply it.
Yeah. 100%. Love it. And for yourself,
And
Ellie?
then I just want to quickly read Life with Trixie.
Yeah.
Says, I made me feel like it's my success does not need to conform to worldviews. There we go. I love that. For me, it was understanding two major things actually stood out. Umbria, I'm actually going to invite you up into a box. You can stay in the box because I know that the comments is not doing you justice right now.
Listen, it's horrible. I don't know what's going on. Sorry.
Sorry, man. Sorry. But just stick around. It's fun. And for me, one was understanding that I'm a visual person and that I absorb information visually and I require a lot of information. And the second thing was understanding that because I have a thing that, like you said, TSpoon, I take a deep dive into things. I take all the information, consider all the information before I make a decision. And that is a timely process. That's a lot of energy that goes into making a decision. So when people come to me and they just blow me off what I'm saying, I get offended at that. And I often feel like maybe that's an element of being bombastic or arrogant or some kind of negative element because it feels like a negative feeling. But I've come to learn it's just because I can appreciate the time and effort I've put into making a decision, and for somebody to at surface level not understand what I've put into making that decision and just to kind of blow it off. So that is something that's taken a very heavy negative weight off my shoulders, a negative belief, which I really love right now.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
For me, it's not even just acknowledging that process for yourself, but you must learn to cherish it and protect it. Because if that's where you are making your good decisions from, to do anything else would be an injustice.
Right.
Protect it.
Right.
Don't let them treat it badly. And often salespeople will pressurize you to make decisions quickly. In my process, I need this in order to make a good decision for me. It's not about you, it's not about your deadlines, it's not about any of that. It's about me making a decision that is valuable to me. End of story.
Right.
Protect it.
I will definitely protect it.
Good.
Can I add to that in terms of a question, TSpoon? So I do understand, and once again, biology or the medicinal side of things, is not something that I'm a professional in. But I do know that there is an age, and I think it's 25, where your maturity, I want to call it that impulsiveness, kind of goes away. Sorry, once again,
starts to go away. From 25.
So whereas you put in front of a salesman, he would psych you up and, and impulsively you say, yes, let's buy that. And, tomorrow you regret that sale or whatever the case might be. But let's say the same technique or scenario that plays out at the age of, let's say, 30. You say, but hang on, I don't really need this product or whatever the case might be. And you don't go for the sale. I'm sure there's a terminology for it. I don't know what it is, but surely that also comes into play. Your intellectual maturity. I think I'm going to call it that.
I like that. I like that as a description. So yes, I think for people whose filters accommodate that, where time is a thing, and they're going to delay the process in order for them to make a decision in a way in which they're comfortable. Absolutely. But one of the things, for example, that we say to businesses, if they don't have a kinesthetic in middle or top management, the chances for that business to make rash decision or impulsive decision is high because visuals are quite impulsive. Kinesthetics have a tendency to be impulsive. Not kinesthetics. Auditories have a tendency to be kinesthetic. High towards people have a tendency to be kinesthetic. High future people have a tendency to be impulsive. So what we are doing is yes, we want it all to slow down, and age will help you manage it better. But if you've got those filters, you're still going to be prone to a more impulsive decision-making process. So things like being a kinesthetic, balancing away from, bringing in high match, bringing in yesterday, the past, bringing in time and details in the convincer pattern. All of that will slow it down. So after the age of 25, people will mature into that, and that's great if they have those filters, if they utilize those filters in the right way.
Look, I think we've kind of discussed, what the NLP is and, how it gets implemented. So, TSpoon, maybe is there something that we haven't spoken about, that you feel that we should be aware of, in terms of what it's all about? As you say, we've only just scratched the surfaces of what you've shared so far in your sessions.
That's a brilliant question. Rudolph, you really come up with the questions there, buddy. So yes, a lot of people, when they look at NLP, they get caught in their perception of hypnosis and, it's a therapy, this, that, and the next thing. So I hear all of that and I've got regard for all of that. But the thing that I would love for people to realize is that the words that come out of our mouth are a reflection of what's going on inside of us. It's a reflection of what's happening within the subconscious mind. We want access to the subconscious mind. Listen to the languaging patterns that you have. Don't take them for granted. A lot of evils can be righted. A lot of evils in our own life can be righted by recognizing the language patterns in terms of whether it is limiting, associating or disassociating. Is it empowering? Listen to the words that you are sharing, because that is an expression of what's happening in the unconscious mind, where all of the values and beliefs lie. That's why I'm big on the thinking thumbprint, because when we take that out, a lot of it is about the languaging patterns. As a visual, I see what you're saying. That looks good to me. As an auditory, I hear what you're saying. That sounds good to me. As a kinesthetic, I get it. Let's keep in touch. All of that is a reflection of where we are here. If you pay attention to that, you're going to get an insight into your unconscious mind, which at a point, it's like looking into a mirror. It's brilliant. It's amazing. And it becomes the mechanism to sort the change just by listening to what it is you say. You yourself. Then take that skill and start listening to other people. Start listening to what they are saying, and you're going to get where people are at. I sit in conversations. I'm a social phobic, man. That's going to be a surprise for a lot of people. I don't like being in social situations. So unless we are talking business, I don't like being there. But I'll sit and I'll listen to people and I'll go, okay. When I get involved, it's a case of let's challenge some of the things that you said. So you said this, you said that, and you can see they're like, how did you know that about me? How did you get this private personal information about me? You shared it. You told me.
You're just listening or seeing the right indicators.
Yep. People share their darkest, deepest, most intimate thoughts in casual conversation because they don't understand their own language patterns. And if you learn to pick up on that, you start to see people in a different light. As a counselor, it's fantastic. I'm getting the inside info. You know what I mean? And then people will say, Brian, and this is not to disrupt your psychic deep dive. People look at me and go, wow, that is psychic, psychic ability. No, you told me. And then they get defensive. When did I tell you? Learn to listen. And it's more than just the words. It's the definition. It's the meaning that they attach to the word. It's the tone that goes with it. It's the emphasis through actions, I hate, or they will emphasize it in some way. Just watch, listen. It's going to be amazing. It's sometimes easier to watch, learn it in other people, observe it in other people. And when you get familiar with it, then start recognizing it in yourself. It's easier to do it on others. And then one day you're going to say something and you're going to be like, whoa, wait a minute. That's just giving me insight to my unconscious mind here. Beautiful.
Would the body language also fall part and parcel of, or I suppose one of the five, I wouldn't call it senses, but the way that you portray? I mean, if I'm annoyed, you might just look at me and I say, okay, well, from how he handles himself, he's either annoyed or he's excited. So does that also form part of the NLP? Or is it considered something different altogether?
No, it's very much part of it. One of the principles of NLP is mind and body are part of the same system. You cannot separate your mind and your body. I don't say, oh, here comes Rudolph and his body, or here comes Rudolph and his mind. You can't separate them. It is one and the same. So when your mind, your emotions are going through something, your body is going to reflect it. We can, and I have helped people heal themselves by giving them physical activities that sort unconscious habits, because mind and body are part of the same system. So sometimes to heal the body, you address the mind. Sometimes to heal the mind, you address the body. It's very much part of what NLP is about. Yes. Absolutely.
So yeah, that is then body language. But like you also explained in the one live, is when you tell people to explain something, hello Mudita, by just using their body language and not speaking words, there is a miscommunication that happens. So it's two that goes hand in hand, right? It's two that need each other.
Yes, very much so. Because it gives the definition. When you go on a body language course, they'll say, this is the body language they closed off. Or I could be cold, or I could be comfortable. So there is a few possibilities for this. It is the definition that have this body position, the definition I've attached to it. You as an observer need to get to the definition. Eh? So you can't take just the body language on its own. You need the combination of the two.
Right.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Right. I think TSpoon, are you okay if we open boxes? If anybody wants to jump in the boxes, if anybody wants to come up and ask questions or challenge TSpoon.
I think feedback is a nice one as well.
Yeah, feedback is good. So anybody come and say feedback. Nothing is more fun than challenging TSpoon. I can imagine so.
I'm just a sponge around TSpoon.
The thing is, Ellie, I've been doing it a long time. This is not just. Thank you, Mzee. This is not just a career for me. This is a life passion.
Right.
I look at life through the eyes of NLP, and I've been doing it a long time. That's all. If that makes me as a subject matter expert, then I will take that. I just don't want to be in the place where it's not approachable. And I enjoy fairy tales. She asks questions and she stirs and she challenges, and it's fun.
Right.
And then when I'm asking questions and throwing it back to her, she's like, you are being the teaspoon. You are really stirring.
Right.
And in part, that's what the name is for. It's just the reality of just challenging the preconceived ideas, man. Like, everybody needs to have honesty as a value. Yeah, no. Let's challenge it.
And I must say, I really love that analogy, the way you explained that. And I don't know if everybody caught it, but I don't know, TSpoon, do you want to say the analogy? Because it came out of your life and I thought it was so brilliantly put.
Which analogy?
Just about what the teaspoon is,
Oh, yeah. So For me, I believe very strongly that people have within them all the resources that they need for the success in life and in spirituality. I think we have everything that we need. And for me, I look at people, I see a cup, and there is the coffee in there, it's all the ingredients, the sugar, milk, you pour in the hot water. I know some people might get upset with that. You only pour in the milk afterwards, whichever way. But you don't drink it straight away. You take a teaspoon and you stir it so that the flavor permeates the entire cup. And I think we have the potential. Often we look at ourselves and we look at our track record and we get disappointed. But we have the potential. It just needs to be stirred up so that it permeates our whole life. And we allow it then to become a track record so that we can see the evidence of it. That then, helps us become more confident. As a teaspoon, I add nothing to the cup. I take nothing away. It's just the ability to stir it, get the flavor all the way through. You have it. You're doing it. When Savage Mom, for example, was having her aha moments, afterwards she's saying thank you to us. It's like, no, don't thank me, thank yourself, because you're the one that's opened yourself to the learning. You've made the connections. It's well done to you, and even for yourself, Ellie, when you've realized these things about your brain and the way in which you process information, like you said, you get calmer about it. Well done to you. Well done for discovering that and putting that in place for yourself. And this is the thing that we need to do for ourselves, is we need to acknowledge the wins that we have. And then we're going to realize this path to growth and development is not as scary or as mystical as often it is made out to be. The money mongers that want us to pay lots and lots of money for these things. Yeah, they want us to believe that it's very difficult and very complicated. It actually isn't. It really, really isn't.
And I was saying that in my art life the other night, while I was saying to you, was your ears burning or ringing? And because I was saying that I can't believe that you're making this information free to people, because it's just like what Rudolph said. This is like a life skill. I do feel like this is something that people should be made aware of pretty early on, because it is just it just provides so much clarity, so much direction. And but it's like you say, if you go, and for me, I say healing, because obviously there are limiting beliefs and things like that from my childhood and stuff like that, and experiences that I've gone through that's also created limiting beliefs and stuff like that. And so when I talk about healing for the most part, but when you go and search up and you start delving into like a journey of healing, you get these really surface level things. Like it will tell you, do an activity that you like. It's things that are helpful, but things that are, I think, very generic. There's not really much that, I think mostly it's things that change behavior, just like what you were explaining in your thing. It's not something that really goes to the bottom where you change identity. And so for me, that's I absolutely love this. And I think that it is available. So like, because on the internet they make it seem like it is so unattainable, so expensive, so complex, and to me it's amazing that you're making this available to people.
Yeah. The thing is, for me, it is about, I'm not making money in people understanding themselves. I make money when people recognize their purpose and they're looking for the tools to develop the purpose in their lives. So I'm making the information available because I need them to be whole and complete. Because it's in that space of wholeness they're going to pursue purpose. Then I'm like, hey, remember me. That's when it becomes a cha-ching for me.
Right.
But to get us to the place where we are whole, where we understand values, beliefs, identity, I don't think there should be gatekeeping on that. I don't think there should be gatekeeping on that.
Right.
It should be taught. This should be taught in schools. It really should be.
So,
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Therapy is expensive. It's 119 a session. Yeah, there's Stefan says 1760.
I want to mention too that I'm just looking at what you guys are saying, and Stefan is saying it's worth every cent though, and I can believe that because I've also heard people talk about what therapy has done for them. But now I'm listening to what Umbriana is saying about what she's gotten out of these lives with you, Teaspoon, and I'm thinking about what I've gotten out of these lives with you. And then we were actually talking about mental health, and you're talking about you've dealt with a lady who had depression, and you're talking about anxiety and things like that. And we had a discussion about mental health, and we actually spoke about the gap, the access, the limited access people have to resources when they need it. Not everybody can afford therapy, and the only time help becomes available to people is when it becomes dangerous. So I do feel like this is, I think, can be very impactful for people who deal with mental health issues.
Teaspoon, from a professional point of view, or from the business version or the identity of you, let's say I am company A. How do I get in touch with you? I mean, what do you offer? Let's start off with that. I think let's just quickly see what do you offer as a service, because obviously your time is a service to whoever, and how do we get in contact with you in terms of I suppose a quotation or some sort of an event?
Sure. Thank you for that question. Thank you for the opportunity for sharing that business side of it. I do appreciate that. So the thing with where I really make the money is that it's from the onset of purpose or the direction of the business, clarifying the values, the mission, the vision, all of that kind of thing, setting the right team in place, setting the right identities, not only for the organization, but for each of the team members. And then how do you inspire? How do you connect with the influencers? How do you structure the reward system so that when you start off, that everybody is on board and excited about this organization, right? And I take people, I've got a program that's called Kairos, which is about timing. Everything in it's in the right season, right? So the thing about business, it's about the right idea at the right time, making the move in your business at the right time. So we teach business people how to recognize the signs of timing within their own business and organization. So it's not just signs of the seasons, it's signs of the business. We teach them team development. We teach them proper communication with all of this, and then also in terms of sales, how to use, like for example, the Thinking Thumbprint in sales, right? For people that are setting up a side hustle, or they're in pursuit of purpose, or they've got a new business that they're starting, I have a program. It's a 100-day program where we explore values, help them define the purpose, help them define the destination, set everything up in the right way, and then give them exercises so that they can mark the growth and development of their business, tick the boxes, as it were, so that they now know, okay, now it's time to go to the next level. Just incidentally, Umbrian, the timing of the growth and development of an organization follows the pattern of the Enneagram.
Oh, wow.
It goes from 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and all the way back to 9. Yeah? So that's, for me, the Enneagram, yes, personality, I get it, but for business development, just phenomenal, just mind-blowingly phenomenal.
Yeah.
No,
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
To what you just said, Teaspoon, with where you start making money and the type of things that you offer. Is there a website or something where we can go look at your different like packages or pricing or anything like that?
So I was kind of trying to sneakily dodge this question for now because I'm in the process of working on it.
Okay.
When I designed the website initially, I did a brain dump. I put absolutely everything on it. And the feedback was it's very, very confusing. So I am making, and it's kind of what I've been working on the last week. I am making very specific changes. So there is when you go on it now, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. When you go on it, give me a week. When you go on it, then it will have personal development, business development, and leadership development. So it'll be 3 clear categories. Some of the stuff does overlap in the background. I'm going to put that out there. You can then decide. Do you want personal development? Personal development is going to give you a lot of the same kinds of skills in terms of the identity, inverted triangle, associate, disassociate, learning to work, values and beliefs. And to the place of following purpose. What I'm designing now is a 100-day program where you can come knowing nothing about TSpoon and everything that I've shared, and it's going to take you through all of these exercises and activities, and then at some point you're going to say, now it's time for me to start pursuing purpose. We're going to uncover purpose and set you up in the pursuit of purpose. So that's what I'm busy developing there, right?
A question for TSpoon. Okay.
Yes, sir.
How much adaptations do you do? Because we're constantly evolving in the business world. We're going more to the online side and less to the direct marketing.
Yes.
So do you think we still need to do the direct marketing, or should we rather move over with the rest of the world to the social platforms?
So a lot of that depends on the kind of business that you have. What kind of business? What are you doing in your business? What is the business about?
No, but I'm just speaking generally. Okay, let's say I've got a consultation business. There you need to do one-on-one. But if you do training, you can do it on a bigger platform.
Yes, absolutely.
Like we're doing currently.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Chris, let me answer your question like this. The one thing about business is the fact that what really opens the doors for us are the influencers. There is a space where other influencers, so like Fairy Tale here, that's in the room. She's an influencer that came into my room. Umbrian is an influencer that came into my room, opened the doors for a lot of other people to then connect with me, and subsequently we are now engaging and they're learning, and it's fantastic. There is a place for businesses to connect with influencers that are dominating the market. Whether those influencers are on social media, then you're going to have to follow them. If it is direct, then you're going to have to follow them. Somewhere along the line, you're going to have to connect with those influencers. At the same time, you must then develop your own sphere of influence. For me, I've been a chump, a grey-haired old chump, where I've not bothered with social media for the longest of time. And it's hit me last year, October. I then decided, okay, it's now time to explore this. And I got to say, it's been life-changing for my business. It has absolutely revolutionized the way I do business. But the influences that I'm looking for are on social media. So I think you've got to ask the question, if you, A, where are the influences in your industry sitting? And B, where's the most effective way to create a sphere of influence for your industry? If that is social media, then absolutely do it. If it's not, then don't bother. So it's really up to where the influence inside of it. And I'm specifically about the influences, not necessarily about the clientele.
Yeah, because I think basically what all of us have to decide is what's the core of your business and what's going to be your niche.
Yes.
Because if you don't know that, you're just floating around.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
No, hopefully you figured that already.
Yeah.
I don't talk about core and niche. I talk about general direction and specific direction. Eh?
Yeah.
You get into a lot more detail then. Yeah. But that's a good question, Chris. Thank you for that.
But I think my problem is I've got too many niches going on.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of fields I can pursue, and I'm not sure which one's going to be the best in the long run.
Okay. So we can help you prioritize. All right. I mean, I don't have to help you. You can then ideally sit down and prioritize. Have a look at the business. Have a look at what's going on in the market. One of the things for myself when I got onto the social media is I have a few businesses myself, and I get excited about all of them. Now I'm learning this new skill of social media. Woo! Now I want to put all of it out there at the same time. You're going to overwhelm your client. You're going to confuse them. So you do need to prioritize in terms of what face are you presenting where. Yeah?
What's your business called?
Thinking Thumbprint. Basically what we do, Chris, is we analyze how people think. I believe that there is an inevitability of identity, right? So your identity is going to create your results. And what we then do is we help in the business sense is we help businesses shape an identity that is going to generate an inevitable result. So, for example, if I say to you, I am a smoker, predict my behavior. What's my behavior? What do I do? I smoke, right? So the behavior is as a direct result of the identity. There is an inevitability, a fatalistic outcome, if you like, of the identity. And what happens with a lot of small businesses is they're not clear in defining their identity. And yes, you can talk about brand and culture. There is a relationship to brand and culture. But what we do with businesses is we help them shape their core business, the direction that they're going in on the basis of the identity that they have. Shaping the values, get the beliefs, structure the inner working of the organization, and then allow that to control or to influence the behavior on an ongoing basis. And it has really, really, really powerful consequences. Training becomes a lot simpler. Controls are a lot easier, all that kind of thing. Yeah.
TSpoon, one thing that we haven't spoken about, and I guess this is an important one, and I think specifically to South Africans in context with the world, is indoctrination. We haven't spoken about how religion has played a role in our beliefs. That obviously, from a mental point of view, has set certain foundations.
Sure.
Okay. Not necessarily right ones, but
Sure.
they have been created.
Sure.
So we haven't even touched on that side of our beliefs, because that obviously has got a deep impact on how we grew up, and then obviously that was set in stone, and we just assume this is the normal. So I'm just putting it out there. I don't want to get into the religious side of things, but that's a big portion in our belief system.
Yeah. So with that, we define the religion, for example, helped define an identity, right? And that identity had values, it had certain beliefs. The use of the terminology where we say it's set in stone, is questionable. Do you know what I mean?
Fairy tale also confirmed that now.
Yeah. No belief is ever actually set in stone. It sometimes feels like it because we walk down a certain path. The values and beliefs generate a certain behavior to the place where it becomes predictable, and then what we do is we label it as truth. So this is truth because it's been tried and tested, and I've got the same results over and over. The evidence is there, and then we call it being set in stone.
Yeah.
So the question is really, is it really set in stone? If you are able, which you've been, Rudolph, and diving deep and asking these questions and doing the inner reflection, you got to ask yourself the questions: Are these values, beliefs that hold true in this day and age? Is it something that I elect, that I choose to believe or not? And then it becomes as pliable as plasticity. Yeah, I got the word. Yay! As any of our other values and beliefs that we have. So those things are absolutely 100% changeable. 100% changeable.
Yeah.
Like
So
fairy
coming
tale is
back
saying,
to
if we start
the
questioning the
basic
things that
belief.
have been put on us, then we can then decide, do we actually want it in our life? Don't we want it in our life?
Yeah. So principles is non-changing, correct? I mean, but beliefs are obviously depending on which angle you approach it, can be swayed or changed.
Correct. The key for all of this is it's about understanding yourself. It's about understanding what needs to be in place in order for you to be in a resourceful state. What is a resourceful state? It's in a place where we can manage our emotions, manage our belief systems, and with that look at what's available, hopefully create options for ourselves. I don't think one choice is a choice. You're forced. Two choices, two options is a dilemma. It's only when you've got three options or more that you actually face them with choices. So the ideal for us is to be able to manage this system so that we're creating a resourceful state that creates choices for us. And out of that, we can plot the most effective way forward.
TSpoon, I just want to say from my side, thank you very much for joining us tonight and sharing your wealth of knowledge with us once again.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a journey.
Thank you very much. No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for responding to it. As you know yourselves, people come in and out of the rooms. It's a slippery floor sometimes. So when people do stick and hang around long enough to actually make sense of what's going on, I do appreciate more people buying into the process and engaging in themselves, making the change for themselves, taking ownership of who they are. So thank you to both you, to Ellie, and I don't know if Ambriana is still here. Thanks a lot to Amber.